Hi, I'm Norman Perello, a furniture designer maker at Perello Design and a woodworking educator author at Wood Skills. Hi, in this two-part series I'll be discussing the sharpening system I've been using successfully over a number of years now, and I've experimented with different sharpening techniques or systems over the years, and I've come to appreciate the system I use today, using a Veal belt sander, which is actually developed as a sharpening system, but it uses a 1-inch by 42-inch belt. Very excellent system to create primary grinds on both chisels and plane irons. The Waterstone system I have to be able to hone the chisels and plane irons I use, using different honing guides, and I'll discuss the different honing guides and of how I've come to just use a simple, one of the more recent Veritas model honing guides, or freehand. Most of the time I freehand plane irons and chisels depending on the thickness of the plane iron or chisel to have a good bearing surface. If not, I'll use a guide, and all the different Waterstones I use in a system I've developed. Now, you don't really have to invest in everything here. This is an accumulation of guides over the years. I'll show you how I use this guide for the most part, and the Waterstone system I have and what Waterstones to purchase. I won't actually demonstrate any actual sharpening, but you'll understand everything of the techniques and the system I use. So it's a two-part series, and the first part is mostly how to create a primary grind using the Veal belt sander, and the second part of the system is honing the back and the edge of the plane iron or chisel afterwards. So the primary grind is used to establish a bevel, used when you've accidentally nicked or damaged the leading edge of a chisel or plane iron, or you've purchased a used one and you wish to re-establish a primary grind. Whereas all this is just to continue, once you have the primary grind, it's just to continue sharpening or honing your systems afterwards. So it's a two-part series. I hope you acquire some benefit from what I have to talk about today. So this is the setup I use to create primary grinds on both plane irons and chisels. Now, this is a Veal system, and I've used this for going on 20 years now successfully. I don't use a grinding wheel or a grinder, so I don't benefit from the hollow grinding at all. And this is more of a flat grind. This is a platen, and the belt, the 1-inch wide belt, rides against the platen. So the belts come in either 120, 320, or up to 1200 grit. Since I use this to actually create the primary grind, I just stick to a 120 and then progress to 320, and the belts can be removed very easily just by this is a spring-loaded assembly, and the belt comes right off. So that's an idea of how simple it is to remove the belt and replace it. The interesting thing about this machine is the belt turns towards the blade, the iron or the chisel surface. And it's a 1725 RPM motor, and I use it with a combination of two accessories to determine the angle. So it's either 25 or 30 degrees, and I've added some over the years. I've added some options where I can actually move this forward, so adjust it, fine tune it to be closer to the blade. I'll show you with the one accessory I use. Some of these I've accumulated quite a few accessories over the years to determine plane angles or chisel angles. So this is a very basic plastic one. It's a Veritas, but this I'll give you an idea. I've set the table on the Veal, the belt sander. It's a Veal, and it's Canadian made. So they're still marketing it. You could purchase this through either Lee Valley Veritas or directly through Veal. I'll post a link to that. So this determines the primary angle. I've already set it to 25. Then I use this Veritas grinding jig to hold a chisel, in this case a chisel. And what I do normally is I use tool wax to lubricate the guide, and then place this in here. So I just use the guide to move the chisel or plane iron across very lightly, And I do quench my blades. I quench the blades not to lose temper. So after 3 or 4 passes, I quench it in a little container of water here. So I use finger pressure against the actual belt while I'm guiding this left to right. And it actually springs back, so I can release it with the finger pressure very light. Try hard not to have the plane iron or chisel lose its temper, and that would be a disaster. Reestablishing a temper on a chisel or a plane iron. So this guide has served me well for both plane irons and chisels, and I'll give a demonstration of how I use it for plane irons. I'm not going to give an actual demonstration of the sharpening, but you see for yourself on how I do this. So if I release this, I'm going to replace it with a plane iron. So plane irons are normally set at 25 degrees. This works. The important thing is to keep the blade against one of the bolts and that little pin, alignment pin at the bottom. So this is ready to grind also at that same 25-degree angle. I've set it to 25 degrees. So this holds up to 2 or 2 1/4 inch blades, plane irons. It works on the same principle as I demonstrated before with the chisel going back and forth. And occasionally, after 3 or 4 passes, I quench it in water for 5 to 10 seconds just to cool the blade off so I don't lose the temper on the iron, on the metal. So this is how I establish my primary grinds, which I don't do very often. It's only if I've acquired a new used chisel or plane iron and or I've nicked one of my irons, which I rarely do. So that works fine. So I'll just put this aside. And all this is very inexpensive, actually. The whole setup, including the motor, could be under $350 or so with a couple of these accessories. Now this is a newer accessory it's from Veal itself. The Veal, the manufacturer of the belt sander, and this is strictly for well, it works for. It's really designed for chisels, but you can use it for plane irons because it's quite wide. The handle's quite wide. So I'll just give an example of that. Now this works differently. The 25-degree angle is already established in the guide itself and the accessory. So what I need to do is actually lower this and and have the table perpendicular to the belt. I do that by bringing the table out and then lowering it. So that's lowered to, it should be, I'll use a protractor. So that's set to 0 degrees now, or tabled 90 degrees to the belt against the platen. And then I use this newer jig that I've acquired from Veal itself, the company. And what I do now is insert the chisel in the guide against the 2 pins. And then so I have it locked into the guide, and it's preset at 25 degrees, as I've mentioned. The guide itself is set to 25 degrees, and I have the table at perpendicular to the belt. Next step is to actually either bring it in or move it out. So I think I'm okay there. So that's the concept. The bevel, the 25-degree facet on the front of the chisel is against the belt at 25 degrees. So it's just a matter of sliding it back and forth, much like the original grinding jig. And this moves it along. And then occasionally I quench this also in water after a few passes. So I like this because it's already established at 25 degrees. Now you can actually modify it and bring it up to 30 by offsetting the table or bringing the table up 5 degrees, bringing it up 5 degrees, and then you have a 30-degree angle. So it's just a matter of setting the protractor to, so bringing the table up, and then since I have the protractor set to 5 degrees there, that's 5 degrees. So now, if I used my guide with the chisel, I have well, I need to bring the chisel down a little more. So I've set the guide up with a plane iron. Again, it's set to 30 degrees now, but I'll bring it, I had originally set to 30 degrees. So I gave a demonstration of how to modify or by raising the table to bring it up from 25 to 30 degree primary angle on the bevel. And this is set to 30. So what I'll do is I'll lower it. So I've reset the table to 25 degrees. Once I've set the table to 30 degrees, I tighten it down, and then I'm able to create that 30-degree bevel primary grind on a plane iron, as I was demonstrating with the chisel earlier. So this works too, and I like this jig too because it's sort of has a preset angle. It's very well engineered, very inexpensive at $30 or so. And it's designed to work with this wheel system, belt sanding system, grinding system. So that goes back and forth. Now it's just a matter of getting comfortable with the system and using it very often, and then everything becomes second nature. You notice how easy that slides back and forth. And all these parts are interchangeable and available, so that's not a problem. That's not an issue to date. I'll reset this back down to 0 and just confirm that it is 0. And what 0 does is it provides me a 25-degree bevel. I do need to move the table a little. So this part is optional. This adjustment, micro adjust wheel, is adjustable, is optional, but I've added it so I can dial in the distance, the clearance from the actual belt to the accessory, to the bevel. They're plane iron and chisel, and so it really works really well. So after I've locked it in, so the beauty of this system is that if you have several chisels or plane irons to do, it's just a matter of setting it up once and then working with it, and then just replacing the blades and it's reestablishing primary grinds. Now I've chosen this system, belt sanding system, over a grinder with a grinding wheel because I'm just not comfortable with grinders, and I find that you can easily damage or lose the temper of the iron, the metal, very easily, much more easily on a grinder than this system. It's a safer system, in my opinion. So that's how I reestablish or create primary grinds on my hand tool irons or chisels. So please subscribe to my YouTube woodworking channel, where I share more of my woodworking techniques, my woodworking philosophy, my thoughts on woodworking, and all the challenges I've experienced, and I introduce some of the new forms of woodworking I've discovered. And also visit woodskills.com, where I have a good selection of my books, both in print and digital format, on woodworking, and all my online courses, and I also offer woodworking plans. I have maintained a regular blog on what I've got going on in my workshop and in woodworking in general. So enjoy.